Okay, we're going to do some watercolors. Okay, is that a good idea? No barking. Okay, you think it's a good idea. Alright then. Hi everybody, I'm Louise. Welcome to my art cabin. I thought it would be fun today if we were to experiment with some watercolors. You can do a lot of really fun things that elevate watercolors from kind of boring and traditional to very fun and very accessible for anybody. So even if you're a complete beginner, just have a go and enjoy. So you can either get your watercolors in a box like this, with all these little, you see this is well loved. This is my daughter's palette. So all the colors here, okay? But I prefer to use watercolors in a tube because I teach art workshops and I need to share colors with all my students. So I like to use these and then I can squeeze them out, give everybody a nice choice of colors on a palette. Plus I also really like to use them quite thickly as well, so you can get really intense color. I'm going to show you that. So I also have some watercolor paper, which you can buy in any art shop or stationery shop. It's normally about 300 grams, which is the weight of the paper. So this means it's a nice thick quality, and when you use a lot of water it's not going to wrinkle. Okay, it's quite important to get a really good result. I have a ceramic paint palette. You can use anything. A china plate, it'll wash off, a plastic dish, anything. Sorry. I have a range of brushes in different sizes. Nice and soft. Some of these are specifically watercolor brushes, but to be honest, go ahead and use any brush that you have. Just have fun, okay? Let's have no pressure about the type of equipment or anything that you have, because you know you can always invest later on if you decide it's something for you. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take out a piece of paper. Now, this is really nicely thick textured paper, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually use some masking tape, and I'm going to tape it down to a piece of board. So let me just show you how I do that. Okay, so my paper is taped all the way around the edge. This is going to keep it really nice and flat, and then when I finish my painting I will take off the tape and we'll have a nice little crisp white border around the paper, which looks nice. Okay, so what else I have is 2 jars of water. So it's good to have lots of water for cleaning your brush because watercolor paint is very translucent and you don't want to muddy your paint colors by having a dirty brush. Kitchen paper. Okay, so this is just going to be used for blotting our brush. And so now I'm going to decide what colors to use for this little experiment. So I've divided my paper into 1, 2, 3. So I've drawn 2 lines down. I'm going to get this, it's called masking fluid. And I'm going to show you what it does. I'm going to use a small brush. And I'm going to paint some lines. With the masking fluid. Okay, so we're just going to let that dry whilst we play around with these two areas of our paper. Okay. Don't worry if you don't have any masking fluid, just let me show you what it does, and then if you wanted to buy some and have a go yourself, you can do that. So the first thing we're going to do is a technique called wet on wet. So I'm going to take one of my bigger brushes and I am going to just put water all over. Oh my gosh, I spilled a bit of paint, never mind. I'm just going to brush water over this whole area. Okay. So can you see that in the light? You can see that. That is all wet. So you can just angle your paper so that you can see that you haven't missed any areas. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply wet paint onto wet paper. So say I go for my pink colour and I'm going to just add some water here. And make like a little puddle of paint. Okay. And then when I brush this onto this wet paper, it starts to move and diffuse, and it kind of has this really lovely soft effect. So I'm just going to put some water there, and what I'm going to do now, let's go for the purpley colour next. So we add some water. Okay, now I'm just going to put a line of purple here. Just got to let it flow and do its own thing, because that's the beauty of watercolors, really, is just letting it do these really nice things. So when it dries, it kind of makes like a nice staining effect. I quite like that, so I'm just going to leave that. Okay, now I'm going to add another line of water. I get my turquoise colour now. That is gorgeous. Yeah, that's my favourite one. Okay, let's see how this looks. Actually, I quite like those blobs, so I'm just going to leave those. And if I add more water, I can fade it out down to the bottom. Maybe I'm just gonna blend that a bit together. This section here is going to be our wet on dry. So dry paper, wet paint, right? So let's see the difference. Okay, let's do, okay, we'll do it the same. We'll do it the same. Can you see when I put the paint down, it's completely different the way it moves? Here it kind of diffuses, and on this side it doesn't. So it's quite different. And I add more water. So let's practice fading that colour. So I just clean off the brush, bring it down, and get like an ombre effect. So if I want to get a really dark pink at the top, I use less water. Let's see how dark I can make that. Okay, now let's see if we can make that purple really dark. There we go. That's a beautiful color. So I clean off my brush because I want to fade it. You can soften that line. You can kind of move it around, do what you want with it. Wow, look at that. So that blue is merging into there, which actually looks quite nice. Oh, yeah. I think you can get more intense tones when you're using dry paper. But then again, you can layer colour onto here, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to show you something with some salt. So I'm going to show you one effect with like sea salt. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt onto the wet paint there. Just like some table salt. Oh my god. Okay, don't worry about that. Let's just... Okay, we're going to leave that to do its thing, and I'll show you in a little while when it's dry what's happened there. I used a big brush for that. Now I'm going to go back to my tiny brush, and I am going to make some patterns over the top of this. So this is still wet. So let's see what happens when I start to add some paint to the top of it. This makes a nice pattern. So I'm going to show you something called lifting out. So I have a clean brush. I have taken a lot of the water off. Watch what happens. You see that? I've lifted the colour out. Let's try it on the blue. This can be really useful if you're painting something and you want like highlights, if you're painting some fruit or something. Actually looks quite nice in the blue. It looks a bit like bubbles or something. Okay, let's see if we can lift out like a line. You have to experiment quite a lot with watercolors, and it's about learning what you can do at what stage, whether the paint is quite wet or very dry. So look what's starting to happen here with the salt. That looks amazing. Okay, so on this bit here I've got the masking fluid, which is semi-dry, which is fine. I'm just going to have a play around here. Let's practice blending some colours. If you've gotten a little bit carried away like I did here, you can just take a little piece of kitchen paper and just kind of absorb some of that if you have too much. But at the end of the day, we can't really go wrong here because we are just experimenting. So let's look at splatting. Splatting and flicking. Click onto here with purple. So I'm going to load up my brush with paint. Okay, I'm going to pull the bristles back and kind of spray. Oh, that's quite cool, isn't it? I like that. See what happens if we use a big fat brush to do that. This is where everything could go wrong, but let's try it with turquoise. Okay, pull the bristles back. Ooh, okay. Nice, look at my finger. Okay, so this time we're going to do, what brush shall I use now? I use like my medium one. Let's use some red, pinky red. I need a little bit more of that. Okay, I'm going to splat, right? So you've got to hold the brush like this. Just going to flick your wrist down so you get this really nice splat. Look into the wet paint there. It's all kind of dispersing softly. And here it's dry, so we've got like little droplets. Let's just have another go at that. Okay, ready? Oh yeah, that's it. You can obviously go way too far, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Dripping. Okay. Gonna have to lift up the board for this one. What shall I use? I'm going to get some blue, turquoise blue. And make it nice and wet. So I want to get a dribble. Okay, fingers crossed this works. So I'm going to lift up my board. can do it. Okay, what a riot. So now this masking fluid is kind of dry, and what I'm going to do, it kind of goes like rubbery, so you just have to roll it off with your finger. And then you get these lovely crisp white lines. That looks cool. Okay, so let's take the masking tape off from the edges. Make sure your paint is dry, otherwise you can rip the paper. Just get some of that salt off. So we've got a real explosion of different techniques and effects, salt, splats, lifting out the colour, masking fluid, dribbling. So next time we're going to use some of these effects to create something a little more finished. But I would encourage you to just go and have a really good session of experimenting with your watercolours and just enjoy it and see what you can do. In fact, you can quite easily make some really nice abstract patterns. Look at the water. Blue water, purple water. So look at our little collection of abstract gorgeousness. So each one becomes like this tiny little painting of joy. Oh, this one's quite cool. I like this. You see, look at all that. You just got to let that bleed and dry and see what happens. Like here. You just got to be quite spontaneous and bold. So here we have our finished experiments. Okay, so my daughter just got back from school and she said, "Mum, these look so cool." So I thought what I'd do is I'd cut them all out properly. So I'm going to use this guillotine so we get a straight edge. I'm going to put a piece of dark card down so we can see how cool these look.